Do you have eyes on the target?
Yeah, I see him. He's not going anywhere.
Okay, make sure to keep your eyes on him. He's a rather slippery one.
What? It's not like he's gonna up and disappear. Ah! Awareness is something all of us know about, but few have the awareness to be aware that they need more awareness. You aware of what I'm talking about? Whether you intentionally practice awareness or assume it'll come with time, you probably still have questions about it. What should I be looking for? What should I ignore? Does playing in a Denny's make me look weird? If competitive players are anything like me, and I do naively believe everyone is like me, I'm sure they have more questions than answers to the mystery that is awareness. So what am I missing out on?
Hi, I'm Dude, or that SRE2 Dude, whichever you want to call me. I make a lot of content on Splatoon to educate y'all.
Thanks for taking the time to talk with me, dude. The first thing I want to know is, how important is awareness?
When it comes to awareness in Splatoon, I think it's extremely important, like top one most important things to take into account, because if you got no awareness, then a lot of the time you're going to probably struggle quite a bit.
I mean, isn't it possible to just be mechanically better than everyone else? If everyone's dead on the other team, there's no one to watch out for.
Mechanics is one thing, but like having awareness on top of that, it just makes your job so much easier instead of just like having to snap and react to absolutely everything.
Okay, fair enough. But what are the biggest things you were looking for when playing?
I'm always watching for when one or two people go down, because I kind of use that as an indicator if we're going to push up or if we're going to play neutral or if we're going to play defense, because if we're taking two down, I'm pushing up because I'm aware the likely thing that's going to happen on their side is that they're going to fall back. Or if they attempt to try and challenge us as four people, then it's just not going to be the best situation, because it's like, it's so much harder to actually take down four people when you're two. I guess another thing that I always do when I'm like taking awareness into account is when I'm playing, I'm always trying to spot the locations of each and every player. It kind of gives you the mindset of, all right, I know what's open, I know what we can take control of, I know what I need to react to if I need to.
Is there anything you needed to learn to ignore to have better awareness?
I guess the thing you could ignore is just like bad mental or like getting angry about stuff. I mean, that's stuff that will like cloud your awareness and all that, but basically anything that the game throws at you is good info. I mean, that little bit of information could be a difference maker whether you get a kill or not.
It seems we found a good basis of what we should be looking for. For some of you, this is case closed. I need to keep track of how many players are alive. Easy. But what will you do now that you know that? In the wise words of Michael from 6th grade, nobody likes a know-it-all. What's the value of studying quantum mechanics if you plan on editing random YouTube videos about a funny Squid Game for a living? If you don't understand what I'm getting at, what does it matter if you see everything going on in-game if you aren't going to do something about it? Seeing with your eyes is only half the answer to awareness. It's time to learn what to do with that information you now have.
Hi, I'm Omega from the top team Moonlight.
Welcome to the show, Omega. Continuing on the topic of awareness, I want to know what kinds of information change how you play.
The key positions on the map is what really determines what's important. The bigger things are the position of my opponents versus my position, the specials of the opponents and my team's specials, for example, how close they are to Cooler, how close we are to Cooler. And the last thing I would say is matchup knowledge. For example, how Wiper interacts with Range Blaster is much easier for Wiper than when Wiper is fighting 52 Gal. But I think right now, the most important thing is positioning for, well, everyone.
And how does this information, say, for example, where the enemy is, change how you play?
Let's say we're playing Robo Zones, and your opponent drops into Trench while they're trying to get back onto the map. A key point on Robo, let's say we're pushing, is top left. And you know your opponents just gave it up. so you take it. That's a bigger thing. But a lot of the time, you'll fight opponents that take their top left first, and you have to play differently around that by playing different angles. Those are the two big things I would say, is like if you notice your opponent not getting their key point of the map, you take it. If they take that point of the map, give them multiple things to shoot at. I like to think of angles now. Like if I make a 90-degree angle between myself, Basil, who's our backline, and either Nolan or Shadow, who's on the other side of the map, then I'm doing my job right.
So you'd say information changes how you play around those key areas of the map?
Oh yeah.
How much of this information do you wait for before making a play?
I think the most important one is how close your cooler player is to getting cooler. If your teammate is not close to cooler and you have a play in mind, is it too risky? Is it not too risky? If your teammate is about to get cooler, you should probably wait because the risk will go down by so much if you have cooler. Other ones being what I said about key points on the map. If you know your opponents aren't on a key point of the map, just take it. It's right there. I feel like urgency is pretty important too, because like waiting 2 to 3 seconds is almost too long. But if you're too hasty on a decision, you might just get killed and then you lose so much space. This game is really complicated.
So I guess you could say that it's more felt than learned, that it all boils down to experience.
Oh yeah, it's what I actually tell a lot of people this for shot calling as well. You kind of you need to do it so you learn what not to do. You need an ego to compete. You need to go into a play knowing that you can make this play work. A lot of the time, for when I was like worse at the game and I would fight a top level player, I would make a play and be like, I'm gonna die. You can't do that.
So what have we learned so far? Awareness serves a purpose beyond just gathering information. It's a means to stay in control of the game. It's a tool to understand your enemy better, and maybe most importantly, it determines the most optimal strategies for victory. Awareness isn't everything, but awareness does make everything easier. There's still one last piece to the 3-piece puzzle that is awareness. A topic you might all be familiar with. Not to sound like a broken record, but in terms of awareness, what I really want to know is...
Hi, I'm Ren. I'm a Splatoon coach. I've coached a few top teams in the past.
Hi Ren, I'm wondering, how would someone know if they need more awareness?
It's pretty complicated question in practice when you kind of look into it, because awareness can very easily lead to poor aspects of your play in other senses. So for example, your position could be completely off because you don't recognize a flank on left side, even though in a vacuum the position could have been fine in a different scenario. Or for example, your aim is way off because you have to make a very difficult flick to acquire a target that you didn't notice earlier. So what I would do initially is to see if you actually have an awareness issue. See how many times you have to make a very difficult correction. So don't immediately go, oh, it's my mechanics that lost me this fight or this moment or something like that. And be like, was I acquired on this opponent before they were like an immediate threat to me? And the same goes for like positioning. If you found that you were caught out in your positioning, ask yourself, were you fully aware of the threats around you before you took that position?
As you are a coach, how do you help people to be more aware?
Yeah, so a lot of it kind of ties back into that first question a little bit. The big thing is that you'll find that when it comes to something like positioning, like for yourself or for the enemies, a lot of it is very contextual based on the map that you're playing on or the mode. Or the thing is that it's very difficult to account for every possible game state, like, you know, where the objective is or how much time you have, the like total points you have to worry about. It all kind of adds up and it makes everything very nuanced when you're in the moment. So what I do as a coach to help like awareness is try to simplify things as much as possible so that you don't necessarily have to overthink all of these different aspects of the game while you're playing. The example I love to give the most is tower control in Inkblot. There's a very important area of the map called bats, which is way far back, like past the second checkpoint, up the ramp when you're pushing. That's the strongest way for like a defending team to stop a push. But it's also the point where if a pushing team is able to control that area before the tower passes like second check, you can pretty much guarantee that you'll get to third check and probably break it, right? It's that impactful and pretty much like wins you games if you're able to control it efficiently. I would then focus my players on trying to problem solve. Okay, on this map, like what are all your best options, right? Like based on your comp or anything like that. With the idea being like, this will be your primary focus.
So in summary, you guide players through scenarios they don't know how to navigate themselves.
Basically, yeah. With the idea being, if I give you a very basic framework and you experience that framework, right, based on the map or something like that, over time, you'll be able to see, okay, the enemy did this one time, so next time I play, I'll be able to, look for that. And so on and so forth, right? Like you'll kind of just have a general idea of how people are going to play, and that would fine-tune your awareness intuitively to where you kind of just know where to look over the long term.
Do you have any tips or exercises that could help someone intentionally grow their awareness?
This kind of feeds into what I do as a coach, but it's very possible to do it on your own. The big thing is kind of breaking down how the maps are played on a case-by-case basis. And it doesn't have to be objectively correct. The idea is you basically map out an idea of what you personally want to accomplish. So where do you want to be on defense? Where do you want to be, let's say, neutral, where nobody has like full control, or like during an opening? Where do you want to be on like your push, right? And the answers don't have to be perfect, but the idea is that you kind of cut out the insecurity almost in your play. And because of that, you'll have a lot more time to focus on what's actually happening in the game itself. Most of the time, if you slow down, especially in solo queue, the game is very slow. Everybody takes a long time to make decisions because people are constantly dying and trading out and losing specials or just wasting them entirely and not taking space. You can afford to just slow down and really think about your actions. But in order for you to actually learn from that over the long term, you still want a solid foundation that you're building on. So if we go to that Inkblot example, if you understand like bats is very important and your rollout requires you to just sit on low ground on plat or something, like under the little statue, and then you constantly like get dropped on from height, then you're not really like helping your awareness, right? Because you're not positioning in a way that allows you to see what's going on bats, for example. But if you were to position bats and just wait for something to happen from there, then maybe somebody's going to drop onto plat and now you get to drop on them just because you're playing that little bit extra slower and waiting for you to acquire a target before, something happens.
It's interesting how everyone has talked about awareness from a different angle. Dude focused on players and advantages. Omega is somewhere between you and Dude, where he talks about player positions relative to key areas of the map. And then you see it as strategic decision making.
They're all correct. I actually learned the whole like slowing down idea. I got it from VODing Dude like way back in Splatoon 1. It's crazy that you mentioned his name. It's just so simple. Like if you're in the right spot on the map, you can just chill. And when you're able to chill, you can just wait for people to walk forward and you just like, they have to come to you if you take the right spots. It's literally just, if you're in the right spot, like Omega said too, like in your key area, you can just sit back and wait for something to happen at that point. They're going to have to cross somewhere where you want to be, right? Because there's a reason you want to be there to begin with in your game plan.
Awareness is a more complicated topic than face value. There are many forms of awareness one must master to become a top player. To gather information on the enemy team, to know the strong and weak points of a stage, and to form a strategy to capitalize on the previous 2 points. Awareness is not something that can be obtained overnight. It requires many hours of studying the game, planning your strategy on each map, and straight-out experience through playing. Awareness is a powerful tool that does nothing on its own, but when an action comes out of an aware mind, that action is easier, more consistent, and safer to execute. With this tool under my belt, I can finally start winning at TF2,